Hello, everyone. My name's Yuta Jazz, and we are going to do another episode of the Occult Saga podcast. I'm gonna be talking slightly softer and quieter because it is nighttime and I cannot sleep, and I am being pushed to do this episode so hardcore that it's surprising, but why the heck not? Why not, right? I'll be enjoying myself. I hope you are going to be doing the same. But yeah, we're gonna talk about light and dark. So choosing either the light path or the dark path. Maybe we'll talk about the gray path a bit, but I'm not quite sure. Regardless, um, those two paths have a deep significance and meaning within existence and the world and creation. There's no right by all. If it were that way, then everyone would just be one thing, right? But there's different reasons on why someone might be choosing to be all of light and love and all of darkness and whatever else comes with that. And there's ways of doing it in healthy and unhealthy ways, slash, there's also ways of how you can do it in benevolent and malevolent ways. Darkness doesn't necessarily need to constitute actual bad stuff or death or, metal goth ritualistic stuff that is like very, I don't know, satanic or other stuff like that. It has many different colors, just as like light has many different colors, right? Um, Whether it's benevolent or malevolent, that's a whole nother topic we might get into at some other point. But the reason I also gave those examples is because just hearing those a few things, you can hear like the positives and the negatives behind it, but they don't have to be just those things, right? It can be also a big misconception. Same as with light. People say or think that it is quite mm, just a straight line of it being like, rainbow sunshine and goody two shoes things, but there's also a lot of ego and light paths. There can be also a lot of control and malevolence that is exercised, and there can also be like this idea of being higher than thou and avoiding actual like responsibility or accountability over one's actions because you see yourself as a holy, I don't know, saint when you definitely are the furthest thing from it, or you can see yourself as being just better than everyone else, but not admitting your faults in the process. You can step into a super ego in a way, right? You can step into a way of like avoiding yourself or going for what you deem as good and right and pure and the only answer to all while ignoring the truth behind the depth of life, the depth of things, the deeper meaning and purpose behind anything and everything. Um, you can exclude everything except for that one thing you deem to be love and light, and you can just use that to spiritually bypass while disrespecting everything around you. And obviously, the dark side, we know what that involves. It can have cookies, but it can also then involve severe abuse and also deep ego of its own, just a different shade of the ego, right? Or a different approach to the same thing. And it can create a different narrative of spiritual bypassing where it's kind of like fuck the light or fuck being good or fuck being benevolent or otherwise, right? Things don't work out through that path anyway, and it is kind of just bullshit and lies. You might as well indulge and get into the depths of your own despair and desires and all the darkness within it and embrace the shadow and be of it because it's more real, it's more authentic, it's more honest. And while both sides have some truth in some aspects of them, they do need to be balanced between each other. um, I personally, I guess I'm a person that believes more in the middle path, though I definitely have always leaned towards the light path myself. But I've had a consciousness phase where I was like, it's not all what it seems to be. And I explored the bigger reasons behind it. And I think it's a lot more convoluted. You can choose different things at different times. That is going to be healthy. As long as you're being real, honest, and going through the process that it's providing you with, that is for your own actual growth, but also in a honest way, right? That isn't spiritual bypassing or thinking you're better than everyone or kind of controlling the narrative of all that there is. You'll be all right. You can choose either which way. It just needs to follow unconditional love at the end of the day, coming from only love slash, exploring the understanding or the realization of true knowledge, not just power over others, in that knowledge or in the suppression of knowledge, right? Um, and it's that's kind of like the main concept to go behind is go from love, not from fear. And then if you choose either which way, it's going to have its own purpose anyway. It's going to flow into a harmonious part of expression within creation and eternity. And everyone goes through different phases of their light and their dark and the middle path. And eventually you do kind of realize where you're more comfortable, but we're always changing. It doesn't stay set as one thing throughout time. It never will. Um, some people might have a really long stretch of, only being in darkness or in light or whatever, but eventually it is going to have a different perspective to it or a flavor or a addition of a understanding that you grow towards, and you then have to release something that was, common or just like custom to you, basically. So the difference between them is not everyone wants to play the same games, not everyone wants to have the same experiences, and so not everyone wants to go by the same rules or guidebooks or essentially ideas and ideologies of what existence in life is. Some people believe in order and like control behind that benevolence and having like a light mindset that everything is good and should be good and focusing on those emotions that are usually attributed to them or associated with them, but it's deeper than that. It's like a theme that you do see in many, many different ways, and it has its own light and shadow, just as darkness has its own, theme, its own vibe, its own array of expression, and also the light and dark or light and shadow behind it. So, light usually does contribute to this idea of order, illumination, being seen, being known, putting down a slower course of understanding and learning through a discipline. And it's it it's hard to even explain. We see it obviously as a separation of like certain, styles and ideas and themes and etc. And every person has their own idea of what is dark and what is light. And that's kind of also how we can see each other and being in different states of that because it's unique, it's different to everyone. You can't necessarily define it as just one thing, right? It is multifaceted, but primarily it would be learning through the truth of a discipline of hierarchy and order and light and illumination. It's kind of like the fluffy wuffy things, right? It's kind of avoiding the deeper, darker things as well most of the time. It's using also the exercise of ego and what is the right thing or the benevolence of it. And it constantly shifts too. There's no set thing for eternity. As consciousness evolves, so does our understanding of these two aspects within the universe. But there is a part where they meet. It's just most of the time it's ignored because discourse is, kind of a slight a slight point of enjoyment for many that exist, but there's also the dark side to it where it is kind of being very much controlling. You can fake the light path. You can make it out to be what it's not, and then actually be embodying a deep shadow of misunderstanding, resentment, hate, saying what's right and wrong when, the truest light path at the highest resonance of like consciousness is going to always be accepting all that is and its purpose and meaning without the ignorance behind what is going against the harmony of all that is. Because ultimately, light illuminates everything. It has both shadow in it as well as light, and it is kind of like the wholeness behind everything. It has to embody that to be pure light, and everyone carries pure light. Whether you kind of show it through one or the other path is a whole another topic, but light is always going to accept its own shadow and accept its own light and accept the whole journey there. There's not going to be judgment that is going to cause separation. There's not going to be angst or anger or resentment and control behind it because you cannot influence that or embody that or exclaim that without actually causing deep pain and separation, and also going into the shadow of light, which isn't, the whole entirety of its pinnacle. The pinnacle of it is accepting that love kind of shines through many different ways and it has a different journey of its own for the consciousness evolution to just come whole, and it has different shades to it and sides to it. It's kind of like you can have people even shine what is considered to be light, right, coming from deep darkness. It's just rare that that happens because you do need to choose the path of healing and love and actually accept your own self and being that agent of some sort. Whereas darkness is always going to be accepting the shadow and whole and all that it is and embodying it and providing any and all possible experiences without it being judged. The only real thing that darkness or the path of darkness does is like separate itself from light and say that it doesn't mix with it, right? A lot of the time there's some beings and some realities that do admit their purpose or point in light, because they constantly dance together. It's like light and shadows, right? You can't have one without the other. There's always going to be a mix of those both, just to understand the contrast, but also for both to have a cohesive existence and creating something and making something. But darkness usually is going through depths of deep emotion, deep experiences, and the unconventional as well as the uncensored part of all of it, right? Is kind of like the unrefined experiences, desires, thoughts, whims, the process you go along to gain illumination and enlightenment. And it is important the point that it needs to have room and space to exist. It needs to have a point of embodiment. It's kind of like you can't really put away the pain and the darkness and the pleasures behind that away and lock them and say that they're just wrong or they can't exist or can't be embodied or they are not real or that this and that is just right and wrong and that's it. That's why also a lot of beings just choose darkness to begin with and stay with it because it's easier to kind of go on the impulses of what is desired and what is needed to express oneself to see all of the different parts of like what can be or what is wanted and needed without it actually being separated into just complete ignorance and kind of like a toxicity behind it where it becomes just a malevolent cancer that eats itself out, right? It's kind of better to then jump on and jump around in life with what it provides you with having space for that darkness to be embodied, with having it kind of be the wanted and desired experience. When you stop desiring it or when it has no purpose to have like been, because there's no pleasure or there's no want or need or needing and lacking and lust and whatever with it, then it kind of ceases to be what it is and it kind of just evolves and moves to the next step and to the next step. The thing is, light kind of is a long, long stretched out process of going through rules and discipline and order, and you can't really skip that. If you want to really purify or achieve enlightenment through light paths, you need to stay stuck with it and you gotta go through each and every step and you can't deviate from it. There's just no way you will be able to deviate from it. Um, but when it comes to the dark path, you can do whatever the hell you want. There's no limitations. There's no um, judgment. There's no, need for you to take your time. You don't need to actually integrate for as long. You don't need to spend as much time or follow a certain system to get results or to get profit, more like than results, I will say. But it's both, like profit or results or the thing that you want. It's just not going to be whole. It's not going to be full. It's going to be a dense point of it. It's going to be just that focus point. And usually it's lacking. It doesn't have like the wholeness within it that you can find within the light path because it's just a quick it's a quick road to get to where you want to get what you want and to just feel that way. But it's like a fast burning matchstick. It's just going to be gone. You're going to need more of it and more of it and more of it. And eventually darkness needs to take from the light to even exist anyway, right? It can't be necessarily self-sustaining and infinite in that. It's just going to be something that is an impulse after an impulse and a reaction following a reaction, and you just kind of like start grasping at straws and keep going on it, and you keep going on it, and you keep going on it until you can't, or until you find a different thing, or a new thing, or you add up multiple aspects of experience to have it feel more whole. But really, it's not feeling more whole. It's not going to be more whole. It's just going to be the quick fix you need to have the least actual learning and integration within it to have the results you want. But it's not profitable, it's not sustainable. It's kind of the point of the light and the dark is they're kind of helping each other like cycle in and out or come to a point of fulfillment and whole. Um, but you only really get it as a sustainable form in either darkness being from unconditional love or understanding of like its point in creation in a deep hole and you being like that ultimate truth of it, slash it has to be in the mix of gray or it has to be, coming to light and embodying that in actual truth, not the ignorance of bliss, as it were. Darkness is always going to be leading you to realizing more and understanding more, and it's going to be like jumping from ship to ship to ship to ship. And if you don't take that road, if you want to try and get stuck somewhere, you're basically staying stuck on a sinking ship, and it's going to drive like deep claws into you and drag you down because you need to keep moving. You need to keep getting that fix or making it have its purpose and potential and kind of traveling around. And it is a fast road to illumination. Eventually, you reach illumination, enlightenment, and some type of like realization of light. There's only so much darkness you can go around before you find the center, the core of where it comes from, which is some type of actual true energy of light or love. And then if you do realize it fully, then you can, kind of play with that darkness as much as you want if you just figure it out. But most do not. Most are afraid of light and they undermine it and they put it down. And so they kind of just stay in that limbo space where they're constantly running away from things. Light has its own issues of ignoring the dark because it's scary. It's the opposite, yet again, just as like opposites get scared of each other, they are still kind of connected so much so that they attract, right? And there's deep purpose in both, but the light can also become so infatuated with itself, it doesn't go to the depths of where it needs to go through shadow, through, the avenues of darkness to find why it needs to be illuminated, why there needs to be an understanding, why there needs to be order and growth, and why you even follow that long, stretched out system of like, oh, I need to actually go through this whole entire process. I need to take my time in all of these steps and let the maturity and understanding and deep knowledge come from both of them, because otherwise I'm just gonna have like this fast burning experience that never really comes to anything, and it's just jumping, 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 where I also eventually need to usually take hold of any other light I can find from other avenues or sources, like either, things or people or, whatever clouds of consciousness you can find it in. And or I am going to be so blinded by myself or by the center point of like what is love and light and that it's only the right thing, that it just becomes a stagnant point of insanity as well. You're just stuck in stating one thing, but you're not gathering the depth of the whole within it, right? That's why, a lot of people that kind of truly go for non-judgment and just some type of wisdom or like where they deeply seek understanding and knowledge, they usually choose the gray path, as you can notice, or they jump around between the two, without saying one is better than the other, which is basically still choosing the gray path, right? You just might experience it as either sitting in the middle and then having a balancing act between the two, or jumping between those two sides and embodying them here and there, or spending a good amount of time in light or dark separately in different amounts of time. So you can realize both of them and kind of mix them together in the middle eventually. Either way, whatever you're gonna choose in life, you're not gonna go wrong with it, because eventually you might just go through different phases and stages and whatever, and it's literally a reflection of your own light and shadow. And then the middle between them is kind of like where you're growing and coming to see like what face you want to show the world, but also experience of yourself. Um, because there's a lot of, different perks to those two sides. Darkness and shadow usually is a very good offensive position to be in, to defend and to prosper in tough times and neglect and trauma and just overall like abusive environments or points of energy and consciousness. Whereas light is usually one of the easier ways to experience complete and full bliss and peace and grace and relaxation behind like true happiness, right? Or finding deeper purpose and meaning in what you deem to be the right thing or order or good, right? It does take longer to gain knowledge, but yet again, like if you see your own purpose and meaning in darkness and shadow, then it's a short-lived experience, which can be just as gratifying at some points or to some people. Um, but yeah, light is gonna have its own perks as darkness is, and you'll see yourself experiencing those two things with their own purpose for you. you're your own, embodiment of whatever it is. And, to some it's gonna be like, oh, being maybe, I don't know, a certain type of criminal or a goth or biker or whatever, right? It could also be like a super hoity-toity freaking Wall Street whatchamacallit, broker, whatever. Yeah, let's go with broker. It could also be that you are embodying that in a weird, unique way through your light experience, right? It's confusing, it's convoluted. There's no straight path to it. There's extremes of it that we all kind of see and enjoy and understand. Um, but even like that, positive, giggly cheerleader that's all rainbows and sunshine, as much as they might be of light, right? They could be in their shadow because they're ignoring the deeper truth or meaning behind their trauma and hardships as well. And it kind of just depends on where you are and what embodiment you are of it. Um, I, for example, have had many a time where I dressed very much dark, and I've been also appearing as a person that's kind of like going through their shadow or their darkness or other things, and I really have tried stepping into that more and more throughout my life, or I've lived a huge aspect or time of my life through what I said for myself was the left-hand path. But really, I was always still considered to be a very loving, light person that kind of is talking about higher dimensional things as well as like the love behind it, not really just the darkness with it, but the reason I know I was exploring my dark side is because I was delving into really creepy, dark, paranormal, other type of stuff and trying to gain wisdom and understanding to it, but really, in some ways, it was just kind of bringing light to it, right? I've learned how to also do that for myself or in a conversation or to illuminate that for another person that doesn't really see it that way. They more like might see it as strife and survival and, the gruesome side of how reality works and ignore its deeper meaning or purpose or be lost in it and kind of become a bit more unhinged, I guess is the way I'm gonna say. Um, yeah, I'm just processing like an idea that's kind of like shifting around in my head, and I'm like, do I want to talk about it? Because I don't necessarily have a lot of personal experience behind it, but I do know a lot behind it. I've met some people, I've seen some things, and etc. Um, yeah, I guess there's just some also different points behind how people think they're just following a dark path, but they're really afraid of their own light and they're not really embodying the deeper healing purpose or journey of the dark path. The issue with the dark path is like you may be swayed by things that are so void of love, they're kind of evil, and I don't necessarily say it as a categorical thing of just like be afraid of it or, go by the religious notion of it. Uh, to some points, it is healthy and not healthy to see it that way, but like some people might delve into what is considered like the cult Satanism side of things, right? And think it's all alright and proper and fine because they're choosing, the benevolence of darkness and all the rest and etc. When that's not necessarily true. Benevolence of darkness is a whole nother topic and it is more connected to the underworld. It's actually more connected to beings that are working with death energy or magic, which is transitional energy, or with a shadow healing and realization, bringing it up to the surface type of thing, which does bring up really sensitive points. It really can bring a person to test their own soul through the decisions they make, which might be good or bad or other things. But when we're talking about beings that are lost to malevolence through the dark path, they're not embodying the true nature of dark path in unconditional love or light or the journey of life in general. Because they are going from the energy of deep pain and fear and the need to control through that and be through that, ignoring their life purpose and journey and what they're kind of like being brought to in terms of real power, which is always going to be like the ultimate level of power is going to come from light and love in some way, even if it's complete utter darkness and it includes a lot of sensitive emotions, maybe like violence and experiences that not everyone wants to have, but some people definitely do want to have those experiences, or they want to understand them, or there's a fascination behind them. Some people still want to play in the mud, as it said, and there's nothing wrong with it if you do it the right way. If you're not doing it the right way, if you're signing on, to some contracts that are not good for you or anyone else, and selling your soul and then being like an energy vampire and literally sucking the life out of things and being void of any type of light or the journey of it, you're probably kind of doing the thing that is mostly only just malevolence. It's not connecting, it's not healing or fun or helpful in any way. Um, it's literally just toxic abuse and a cancerous growth that kind of just destroys creation and eternity. And yeah, a lot of people start thinking that like being, I don't know, a certain type of occultist that's like a slave to demons or Satanism or certain types of witchcraft, or covens, spiritual covens, or literal covens that are like really kind of messed up and fucked up, right? That it's fine, like people that don't believe in it are ignorant and they don't see the whole thing. Most of the time, it's deep resentment of God, which you are God. You're birthed from God. There's no other way behind it. You couldn't be alive if you weren't birthed from God. Or if not, I guess, if God didn't give it life to begin with, which a lot of like deep darkness and resentment and other painful avenues of creation does have its own blessings and miracles given from the Most High towards that. It's not really common though. Not exactly. The way it works is a whole convoluted thing we're gonna delve into at some point when we go to the topics of all of that. But really, when it comes to the occults, it's very and in the darkness side of it, it's very much a flimsy balancing point when you're going to be on par with creation and when you're going downhill and eventually you are going to hit a dead end you need to crawl out of and just, climb with the last breath of life you have. And as a person soaring really high in their own idea of like what is light and love and being a complete egoistical detrimental ass can, fall so hard that they literally kind of get fucked. So can the dark path cause the same thing? And you can come back from it being more true as who you truly are, having been on the road of, some really dark, dark, dark shit as a soul. But a lot of the time, if you keep subscribing to that, you're not getting anywhere. You're just getting consumed by the fear of existence and hating on God because the illumination behind it is that you are a part of God, all that is, everything that exists, right? You're a part of it. There's no hierarchy behind it. There's no deeper meaning behind who's better or worse. There's no attribution to power here or there more so if everything kind of just follows its own harmony of what its purpose is in creation and life or spirit, then you don't need to be constantly afraid and running away from it. You don't need to be fighting higher forces or fighting God or fighting the devil or whatever it is. You just need to be kind of vibing with where you are at and who you are and see where that vibe ripples out. But most people really like the idea of like someone being wrong and right, and really you're just demonizing your own self at that point. You're not demonizing actual gods or higher forces or other things. If you are, there's a reason that you're doing it that is deeper within you, not actually within those beings. Those beings have their story, just as anything else in creation, right? You don't need to subscribe to one or the other thing and to just be a battery of something. You also don't need to be a devout follower that is ignoring their own self. You can embody whatever you are and kind of just follow through with that and see where it goes and what happens from it. Especially currently, right now, as consciousness is evolving, because it's becoming more varied. There's more space for everything to exist as what it is and just be left alone to have its own purpose and meaning and space without being categorized as good or bad, um, or right and wrong or whatever. Like, there's so many different shades of realities and conceptions of existence that is opening up right now. The need for war is like so past existence century, whatever. Sorry, coffee coughs. But yeah, if you are the light of God, the dark of God, the shadows, or the illumination, just embody the point that you are your own being that was always meant to have its own journey. Um, there's angels that have fallen and risen. There's also aliens that have had their good quips and their bad quips. There's a bunch of different stories of how different gods have gone through their life, or different beings have given into their own downfalls and have come back from it, but also some just fell, and they could have been their own light. There's such deep repression of oneself as like a aspect of existence and creation, or God, source, whatever, right? That you might um, put yourself in these void spaces where it's just like cancer and toxicity and like nothingness. It's just like this void, of deep lack and constant consumption. And really, even those parts of creation not only have purpose and meaning because they've come out of something, right, from something for some reason, but also they have some type of true north. Everything has like a true north or a south, and you just need to be following the journey in between of those that actually is bringing you to the truest expression of what it is to be alive or a part of creation or coming from God, and you'll find your place. There's a space and a place for everyone. There's company for everyone. There's people that want to play in different ways in different places in different spaces and maybe experience different sides of themselves, right? One life it might be being a victim, the other one it's the oppressor. One life it's actually being neither of those and seeing how you can create a utopia, right? Whatever it is, like we're really kind of being pushed to step into that understanding without categorizing everything as good or bad or right or wrong, light and dark, and upper realm and lower realm, and segregating everything and separating it, and then literally just judging everything by right and wrong and having wars against each other. Everything has a purpose, everything has a reason, everything has a point. Some of it is more pleasant than others. Ultimately, everything is kind of supposed to be guiding you to awareness, understanding, and the embodiment of truth, unconditional, real truth, not the illusion of it. Unconditional love has no bounds. It goes and ripples through everything, but it is like beings even of all sorts forget that they need to come from that energy rather than from the fear lack mentality that creates actual discourse and war within existence. And it's a scary thing to admit that you are a part of source or God or all that is everything, right? In some way, on some level, that's coming closer to that understanding and truest power of it that doesn't actually run off of authority, tyranny, or oppression, or having to control everything. That there's this easy way to just flow and be and exist, and to just exist without playing games. Or if you do like playing games, then to just flow with that as well, instead of, you know, needing to secure yourself by having more control and power and like it's different energies. And if you can find peace within it and the serenity of tranquility, be as dark as you fucking want, you know, but if you can't, maybe you need to just admit that, you know, you gotta get towards the light of things and vice versa. Maybe being all right and perfect and everything that is goody two shoes isn't your style and you need to go down some notches and be like, I'm way more chill being like this abusive sloth that kind of brings people to light, but also doesn't overstep the reality of it, right? Kind of like the hard truth of um, tough love and realizing toxicity or being that example. There's so many different shades. We all just gotta find our own shade to embody our own color, our own scheme of things, right? Our own real true purpose of like what are you? You know, what are you? What are you? What is everything? Let's get let's get some understanding. Let's gain wisdom behind it. Let's actually be natural about it instead of just making it up to be wrong and right and then having useless wars. Because I don't know, it's as long as time itself, and do we really want to keep having this discussion about good and bad and good and evil? It never got anywhere. It's kind of boring. But avoiding love and choosing fear or slash thinking something shouldn't exist but you should has definitely caused a lot of pain and resentment and regret. And if you abuse one, the other is gonna abuse you. And light and dark has been doing that to each other for a very long time. And both have made mistakes, both have been toxic and cancerous and all the other stuff. It's just different shades of it. It's just the spectrum. It's a spectrum. It's a pendulum, you know? So, yeah, I think that's it. It was a really, really weird topic to talk about. Um, I find it funny I was having to be so soft-spoken. Um, I had fun. I hope you did too. I don't know if we're gonna come back to this conversation. I know we're gonna delve into angels, demons, aliens, um, I don't know, something towards like justice and order and also crime and other things to do with that, and then the deeper levels behind that also as well, like benevolence and malevolence. Um, and also, of course, the ultimate powers of either love or fear, because usually people think it's like love and anger, but actually it's love and fear, and there's so much I want to talk about that. Um, because anger can actually come from fear or from love, and that changes everything about it. Also, how you handle anger is a whole big ass thing too, but we're gonna get there when we're gonna get there. I hope this has made sense with the loop-de-loops. I tried categorizing on both sides. I know it's not going to make sense to everyone, but this is probably for people of a certain type of consciousness or who are literally following the mystic's path, because you don't necessarily need to be a spiritualist to be choosing the left path or the right path in existence or just being alive. You might have a personal morals code or a line of ethics you're following or a deeper understanding of your own consciousness within, like, I'm gonna choose this all the time, or this road, or my default in life is X, right? And it's a big conversation for many people. You can see different shades of it within, outlaws and orderlies and all the rest, people that are maybe, looking dark as heck, being super light, and people that are super light being definitely very dark, and, all the different sides to it. So I hope you like this. I did, and I will see you next time. If you want to see more of me, go to the link tree, because why not? So yeah, peace out. Thank you for watching.